So now Carolyn is staying with us and being joined by a great panel from Dennis, from BILD, and from not one but two globally recognised universities, Oxford and Harvard. How's that for a twofer? So please welcome back Carolyn Morgan.
Thank you. Okay, well, we've been very well set up this morning, everybody talking about the importance of moving from advertising to reader revenue. So I'm delighted to have here three people who know an awful lot about subscriptions and are kind of experimenting in lots of interesting ways. Abby, in the middle, is Chief Customer Officer at Dennis. She pioneered the print and digital bundling strategy for the week, established the Week Junior, and has very much focused recently on customer retention. Stefan, on the end, is the MD of Digital at BILD, which is Germany's biggest media brand, and is formerly a co-founder of a digital media agency. And Greg, on my right, is a researcher in tech-enabled disruption. So we're experiencing plenty of that at the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism at Oxford. And he's formerly a news media exec, so he kind of knows both ends of the business. So we're going to talk about reader revenues. And I guess one of the ideas that was sort of discussed this morning was that the consumer these days is a little bit more willing to pay for content, and I'm just interested in why you think that might be. I'm sort of looking at Greg to start off with, but do chip in the other two.
Yep, I think we are observing changes in people's willingness to pay all over the Western world and in Europe. We think it is connected with the diffusion of other media services, content services like Netflix, like Spotify. We see that in countries where more people, where Netflix and Spotify enter, basically people start to buy more content. Maybe it's because they learn that this is the way that if you want quality, if you want convenience, you need to pay. So happily, this is what's happening. When we think about what is the diffusion of subscriptions, according to the latest study we've done at Oxford, in major European markets, 2/3 of former newspaper publishers have already started to charge for content in some ways, for digital content in some ways. And when we talk about, we are looking just at news publishers of magazines. So these are like news weeklies. So almost half of them have already started charging for content. Obviously, there are some segments of the publishing market that went into paid content much earlier than the rest, and I think mostly about B2B publishers. Many B2B publishers have started charging for content, and they are information services much earlier than the consumer publishers. And you see that some of them are very successful. So I just a few days ago I was looking at the annual report of the company called Essential in the UK.
Yes.
They are best known for the Cannes Lions Festival, but they also have half of their businesses festivals, but the other half is information businesses. And 2/3 of the revenue is from digital subscriptions. They make like maybe 5% of their revenue from print advertising today. And the margins are just amazing. 30% profit margin on a business. I think it's a substantial business today. So we see that it works. We see that it requires time, and it requires a lot of transformation, like from the product logic to a service logic.
Yeah. No, I think that's very interesting. So the kind of, consumers, readers are getting more familiar with the idea of subscriptions, but I think also what's happening is publishers are experimenting more, and I think you pick up an interesting point there that kind of B2B publishers are perhaps leading the way. So I'm interested perhaps to sort of ask a question of Abby about how at Dennis your subscription propositions are changing, or what are you offering that's different?
So when we launched the first digital editions, particularly on the week in 2011, we had to really look at how we were pricing, how we were providing that to the customer. Because I think as much as we're saying, customers are more willing, as publishers, we have to find a way for customers to find a price point and a way of paying and a format that they're happy with. Because unless you get that right, you're not going to convert them. But when we launched digital, rather than just adding it on, we set up the 3 sort of different price points. It's similar to that we were talking about earlier with The Economist. So you have a print price, a digital price, and then bundling the print and digital together. And that kind of digital increment makes it a better proposition for someone to be going into and buying both. More recently, with the launch of the Week Junior, we've also got a secondary bundling model. So you can be a print subscriber to the Week and a print subscriber to the Week Junior. That allows you to have one single payment with us, so it's very easy and straightforward. And also, it allows us to send both magazines out in the same wrapper, which obviously gives us a benefit from a postage cost point of view.
Yeah. So it kind of helps that actually your audience, there's a bit of crossover between your different publications as well as people who are choosing to have print and digital or one or the other.
Exactly, and it's all about knowing the consumer and what they want, because there will be people out there who will never want more than a straight copy of the magazine direct to their door. But there are people who want to take that relationship further. And when you're thinking about driving reader revenues, it's all about, well, actually, how do I broaden this relationship?
Yes.
Can I sell another product? Can I upsell to get digital as well? What else can I do to make that lifetime value stronger?
Yeah, we'll pick up on the idea of kind of membership, which was mentioned this morning in a moment. But Stefan, the other way, I guess, of segmenting and bundling and changing subscription propositions is by looking at different segments within your audience. And I think you've been looking at that, or you've been exploring that a little bit at BILD.
Yes and no. So we started actually 5 years ago with BILD Plus, which is our premium content offering. And with the launch, we started with 6 different price packages. And maybe that's one of the failures in the market, looking at news publishers. It's often way too complex, from pricing, from product differentiation, from the user flows. So what we did 2 years later is really reducing the portfolio by 60% and down to 2 active products. One for $99 per month, one $9.99 at that time per month, making it really simple. So going actually away from diversification. What we then did next to that is adding, for the user who is interested, adding different experience on top to that. So 2 basic price plans. Actually, one is important of them. So and then adding some other experiences like bundling with, could be hardware, so iPad or a phone in a longer term price plan. Or it could be bundling with other contents like sports content with our partners from Eurosport or DAZN. So creating a bundle where still BILD Plus is the core, but we add DAZN and create a special price or special package,
So
and
it's a
then
kind of
publish
version,
publish that to unique or to the segments where we think high sports interest, very affine to premium highlight clips or live sports, willing to pay. So that's what I meant with yes and no. So reducing our offering to make it less complex and simply, and adding other components and then pushing that to the right target group.
Yeah, but I guess what's quite interesting is on top of content, you're also adding experiences. And this is something that I've heard other publishers talk about moving from being about a product to being about a service for an audience. So I'm just interested in how you think that is likely to evolve.
It evolves. I mean, for us, the core is still the editorial content and needs to be the core. What we want to try to sell is build editorial content with our reporters, with our best-in-class content. But we add, and we do add some experience around that. Not sure if experience is the right word, but we add sort of membership propositions to that with, it could be money can't buy experiences, like a Rolling Stone concert pre-sale. So pre-sale for the tickets, which are very, very exclusive in the market, and they're sold out after two hours. So adding a special benefit to that, being a BILD Plus member brings or makes the subscribers happy and brings us new subscribers in. It could also be other sweepstakes. It could be other benefits with exclusive contents we add, which are maybe not normally included in the BILD Plus proposition. And it could be other deals or value add products we add to the subscription.
Yeah.
So we test a lot with that. You never know in advance, does it really help in selling or increasing the lifetime, but just testing and learning and seeing what works and what doesn't work is really helpful for us.
Yeah, so I guess there's another kind of like interesting question, which perhaps Abby can kind of like pick on to begin with, which is how do you renew subscribers? How do you keep them loyal? How do you keep them with you? And I'm interested in what you're doing really at Dennis on that.
So the background is ultimately, as long as you are delivering them the high quality content they're expecting, that's the core of the service. But there's obviously that much more that you can do with that. So particularly on the week, we realized that week subscribers kind of see themselves as a special club. They are getting the information they want in a certain way, but actually they're a really kind of demographically, they're a really curious bunch, and they're high net worth. So actually, what can we do but to curate, in the same way that we curate the news and media information that goes into the magazine, how do we curate offers, whether it's a wine club, we select books, we have offers and competitions, which are kind of all really kind of targeted, and they've got to be right. It can't just be one of the kind of off-the-shelf benefits packages. They've got to be seen to be chosen specially. So on one hand, it can drive revenue, because obviously you're making commission on whatever you're selling to that audience. But actually, they need to value it. So in valuing it, that adds to your likelihood to be able to keep them that little bit longer, because they can see that within the wider sort of ecosystem, they are being looked after.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's interesting. So one question I'd like to kind of put to all of you really is working with what you might call platforms. And maybe, you know, a few years ago it was all about Apple Newsstand, and now there's a lot of growth in platforms like kind of like Readly, and also we just heard from kind of like, you know, Facebook. So I'm just interested in kind of how you're approaching working with platforms or with third parties to grow subscriptions. I don't know whether you want to chip in first.
We just had this other panel with Guido from Facebook and Jesper from Spiegel. And it makes sense when they said it's challenging. So what we do really appreciate is that after years of discussions with Facebook and with Google, that they open up for subscriber acquisition and using the platforms or the products to support subscription business. So Facebook did that just in Q4. Google announced that. With Apple, we've been doing and offering paid content for the last 8 years, actually. So actually, Apple is the most advanced in supporting us in that case, based on the iTunes Store. In some countries with Apple News, which doesn't exist in Germany, so I can't comment on that. But Apple is quite important as a subscription driver, being with the App Store. And looking at Facebook and Google, it's a little bit too early to say how it works. So we appreciate that they do support this. On the other side, we think, or we're not sure if they're really into that and how long they will support that. I mean, is it now more a PR-driven project? Is it more a current project only, or is it a really long-term sustainable cooperation where they help us in building business? And we did this survey among 35 media companies as part of our paid summit. And there was quite a big discussion then, one is how relevant the platforms are for us for paid subscription, and how supportive they are. And you see that actually Google and Facebook, both, they are sort of relevant for everyone for subscriber acquisition, but not really supportive enough. So Google scores a little bit higher because they just announced their project. Facebook a little bit lower, but really supportive could be stronger, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. I'm getting a kind of flash. I know. Are we fine on time? Because I'm getting a flashing. Sorry, loads of time. Brilliant. Yeah. Great. We'll keep going then. Fantastic. You tell me when I really have to stop. So what about you, Abby? What about Dennis and looking at third-party platforms? Is that something that you're exploring, or are you concentrating on direct acquisition?
So obviously, I think, as you say, Apple is where customers go and will pay digitally on platform. Google, less so, but then obviously you're using that platform to kind of get to read. And I think that's the kind of crux of it, is actually we want to have a one-on-one relationship with a reader. And you're only really going to be able to convert that to a paying relationship if you are in there on a one-to-one basis. It's very difficult to do that through a platform. Yeah. So we are finding real positives through social media. now, so starting to get sort of conversions, particularly on the Week Junior, it's working incredibly well. But actually, it's looking at kind of platforms, so as you mentioned Readly.
Yeah.
The question is, and we've only just gone onto the platform, but what is it that it's going to deliver to us? Are we going to be able to build reader relationships through that? Do we need to think more carefully about how we take those platforms and then take a step kind of through it to bring people back to our own sites? Because they hold so much kind of value, and you can do this wonderful sort of demographic targeting, but you've got to take them off the platform really to convert them.
Yeah, so it's almost thinking of the platforms as a sort of an acquisition source.
Yeah.
But then your ultimate aim is actually developing more of a direct relationship.
Yeah, but you can use those platforms to communicate outwards with custom audiences and
Yes.
people that you know, people that you already know, to kind of go to our subscribers within the Facebook environment, talking about the Wheat Wine Club or something like that. That you can use them, but it's very much trying to build that relationship.
Yeah, yeah. Anything you want to
Yes,
kind of
I
contribute
basically
to?
believe some of you attended last year's conference, so you know my views. I believe that platforms are not your friends. They are not your enemies. They are your disruptors. They are disrupting the business model of advertising by decoupling content consumption from advertising viewing, and basically the result is damaging to your advertising business model. So this is like, let's be clear about what's happening. Your reader who is using Facebook basically is avoiding seeing your ads. So basically they are not, you don't make money with ads if they are using Facebook or they are using other platforms. So you need to have a strategy how to deal with the platforms, and you need to think about how your business model supports this strategy. There are publishers that basically can use platforms as distributors, but these are publishers that basically don't need to make money on the digital. These are publishers like the BBC that gets a license fee for their broadcast business. This is a business like Al Jazeera or Russia Today that are funded by their states. Or somebody who has a very rich donor. Basically, they can all use platforms as distribution channels. All the others that need to make money, they need to be very strategic about how they engage. One way to do it would be to think these are acquisition channels. So Facebook can be very effective if you think about like selling subscriptions and you think about their targeting capabilities, using their big data and to create your lookalike audiences similar to some segment of audiences that you want to target. This is an amazing tool and very effective in selling subscriptions for many publishers in Europe and the world. So obviously there are some use cases, but you need to be very strategic. This is like one thing. The second thing is that in the end, we are going to have to compete with the platforms, and publishers need to find ways how to do it. There are some ideas emerging. These platforms are so huge that they cannot do some certain things. Certain things, if you think that you can compete with Facebook on a feature like, better comments or whatever, this is very difficult because these platforms are so huge that they can develop any kind of a new feature, after you do it, and you basically work as a free, business research team for them. But there are some services very important to your customers that they cannot provide. Let me give you an example. I'm on a board of an e-commerce company that started to sell so-called verified advertising. There is a problem that people don't trust advertising anymore because there is a lot of fake ads. There is not only a problem of fake news, there is a problem of fake ads. For example, if you want to buy an apartment or rent an apartment, there is plenty of fake ads of apartments. These are basically not these apartments. When you call, you learn that this is not really the apartment being advertised. Maybe something else is advertised, and so on. So for example, what they sell is a service that every apartment will be checked by a human being who will go there and take a picture. And this is a service advertisers are very happy to pay for. And this is kind of a service that obviously global companies cannot provide on local markets. So publishers can find some features, some innovative services to compete with the platforms, also in the advertising market. But they need to think about fighting with in judo. So basically, you need to think that somebody is very huge. So you cannot attack a huge person, straight on, if you are much smaller, because basically this person will be, like me sitting on my little daughter. Obviously, it's not going to end well. But she can do.
What you're saying, use their strength against them. Okay, I think you've kind of reinforced the case for let's be less reliant on advertising and put more effort into subscriptions. But I guess one thing I wanted to kind of explore, perhaps particularly with Stefan and with Abby, is if a publisher is moving towards subscriptions and wanting to really grow subscriptions, what are the organizational challenges? What are the practical difficulties? What kind of things do you have to do differently to do that and achieve that goal?
I mean, we've been now in subscription for 5 years, and the biggest failure, or the biggest mistake we did is starting 5 years ago and not like 8 years ago. So every media company discusses for like 3 years, doing research, doing discussions, doing board presentations, and getting stuck and not starting. So I think really the first thing is do it. Just do it, and don't discuss the models, because there's no right or wrong if it's like freemium or meter or full paywall. It's just about doing it, and not one model is better than the other. It really depends on where your brand sits, what's your traffic referrer situation, and what you like for your newsroom, what's your goal in combining it with maybe with print. But just do it, and then it's really, the commitment is crucial. Really, it's all about the commitment in every part of the organization, especially editorial. And then you need to build up the systems and the teams, maybe systems first. You need a payment system. 5 years ago it was hard to get, so we built it. Currently you get like a bunch of good payment or subscription partners who create or give you a good tech for that. You need a CRM system, the BI system to get all the data together. So it's quite a lot of investment if you build it, or you just license it from a partner, and then invest in teams, because you try to get the people from other branches, other industries. The best conversion people sit in games. The best CRM people, they sit in mobile price plans in telco business, because they do CRM for like the last 20 years, or ISPs. They have perfect CRM people. And then bring change to the newsroom, bring data understanding to the newsroom, bring data visibility to the newsroom, talk about metrics that are important, and not about just like converting people, but keeping them engaged, increasing lifetime per cohort, increasing lifetime maybe per article flow, and discussing non-converting articles if you're on freemium. So there are so many new metrics we haven't even think about, and we added, starting 5 years ago, we just looked at converting articles, and maybe articles behind the paywall which are highly engaging. Now we're discussing a lot about non-converting articles, because if you're in freemium and the editorial team discusses every day what is free, what is paid, you should not only focus on converting articles, but also on the non-converting articles. What's wrong with them? Why didn't they convert? Should I take them out or give them away for free, or as advertising based? So it's completely new metrics on the horizon then. Yeah.
Lots of really, really interesting insights there. I think the one about don't debate what you should do, just test it is really valuable. And I think it also sounds as though you've got a lot of measures and a lot of ways of analyzing what's working and not working. So you're sort of doing that iterate and learn thing. So I think that's really sort of valuable. Was that your experience as well?
Yeah,
Abby,
I think it's all very well to go, well, this is what we think the model's going to be, but until you've tested it and seen how your consumers are going to react, you could be completely wrong, and you just need to be ready to pivot and go in a different direction and see how that's working. And actually, that's from a Dennis, subscriptions are in our DNA. That is absolute sort of core to everything that we do. But that doesn't mean we're constantly not looking at it. We are constantly checking, does this make sense? If we put this pricing in, what impact does that have? Because that's the glory of subscriptions. You can pivot, but you can then model what it will happen over the next 3-5 years.
So kind of investing in the data and the measures and having enough technology to be able to to test and to sort of like learn is quite important. I think, yeah, I will come to that. But I think the other thing that you said, Stefan, that was very interesting was bringing in expertise from outside publishing in subscriptions, so not just relying on our own industry. So I think that's quite relevant. Sorry, Greg.
No, I think these are very good points. What I would like to add is that don't focus on content itself, just because basically your offer is something more than content. We have great examples from some big subscription businesses. For example, the newspaper in Poland I used to work for 20 years, some years ago, has just moved their comments to the paid package, and it's very popular. It's a reason for people to pay for content, is that they will be able to write comments. There is a great example from Slovakia that will be presented later today. I convinced the publisher to move sharing paid stories to the most expensive package. And right now, when they are doing surveys among their readers about the reasons to upgrade from a basic package to the most expensive package, this is the most popular feature and the most valuable feature for these people. It means that certain activities that we basically, publishers gave up to platforms, like commenting, like sharing stories, are extremely valuable for people. People are willing to pay more to be able to share the paid story with their friends, with their family, to post it on Facebook and let other people to see it. So basically, when you think about your value proposition, it's important not to think just about like stories. That we need more stories to really cover the market. And the second thing is that when you build these capabilities, when you bring these people from ISPs, from telecom, I think you build a basis not for just reader revenue, but for consumer revenue. Whatever you build for subscriptions, you could use it for, to inform your e-commerce strategy. The skills that you bring to the company can be used to inform your e-commerce strategy, and you can start selling other things. Tickets to your events. You can sell, we were talking a lot today in this conference about affiliate revenue. Platforms like Amazon obviously are, taking over the retail industry. But there's a huge problem in the retail with inspiration. Basically, if you know what you want to buy on Amazon, it's very easy to go there and find it through search. But if you don't know what to buy, it's very difficult. And this is why many retailers are moving into content sphere. You see, Asus, Net-a-Porter, Amazon. Apple App Store has started to publish articles in their App Store because basically it's a problem for users to find interesting apps. So publishers obviously have amazing skills to inspire their readership, what they need to buy, what is worth out there. So I think there is and when you build a capability that you can, you know the user, because the user is your registered user, you have a history of payments, you know the user, you can personalize the right story and show them the right products and convince them to buy. I think it's secondary whether you will fulfill the sales yourself or whether you will use an external shop to do it. This is like, additional thing. At the start, the most important thing is that you have the audience, you know the audience, and you can inspire this audience to, inform about the variety of products being on sale.
Yeah, I think you make a very interesting point about, it's not just about the content, it's also about enabling conversations within the community. And that I think, is something that certainly B2B media have been doing for a few years now, is putting conferences and conversations and things. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think that's an important thing perhaps for consumer publishers to also hold on to.
Because they are customer centric in the ways. Yeah. So they are not focused on just one way of monetizing the stuff. Yes. But what you see in B2B is this is maybe interesting to this conversation. So you see, of course, the event business is very important and was always very important. Content business is another thing. But the new thing is that they are starting to create apps to solve people's problems. So, for example, this British company I mentioned earlier, Ascentum, what they have done, they started to build apps for retailers, for example, to track what's going on Amazon with different products. Yeah. So this is a new kind of an information service. This is a service to their reader that is useful in their daily, day-to-day business. It's not articles. This is like a dashboard.
And I think, yeah, I'm sort of conscious of time. So I think that's really interesting, that sort of shift from being about product to being about service for a particular audience. So just to sort of like, I guess, final observations perhaps from Stefan and kind of Abby about what's next, or where you think subscriptions are going for your businesses.
What's next? I hope further growth. It's a marathon business, so it really takes time to build up the audiences. And you see there are still limitations. So even the biggest publishers, they are like the New York Times, for example. They do only convert 2.6% of their reach into paying readers. So it's not like it's great revenues for them. It's great ARPUs. So for us, it's the paying reader or paying user is 15 to 18 times more ARPU than a free user. And we're good on the advertising side. So it's really, really interesting ARPUs. But it's not easy to convert 5 or 10% if you still follow the advertising business. So the Times in London different with the hard paywall. But if you have some sort of mixed model, you won't get a higher conversion than 3 to 5%, I would say. And if you look at other industries, so what's next in the next 5 or 10 years, the other industries only succeeded with like flat fees across all brands or the whole portfolio. Like Spotify and Deezer, you get all music. Netflix and Amazon Video, you get almost all videos. And in news and media, you still subscribe to one brand.
Yes.
You get all news, but only one brand. And we always discuss, is there room for some sort of disruptor? It might not come out of the publishing industry by itself, but maybe there's room to make it a real mass media model. Yeah. There needs to be something in the future, which is $10 a month, all in. Yeah. But maybe we're, as a publishers, also not open enough to support that. We're always trying to keep control on the user data, trying to keep control on our news. So I'm not sure if it will happen, but that would be the basis or the fundament for a really mass media paid content model.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think we really are out of time now, so I think we might have to kind of wind it up. But thank you very much. You're around for the rest of the day, so if people have got more questions, they can collar you over kind of coffee. So thank you very much. Thank you to the panel.
Thank you.